When I was 18, turning 19, well, earlier than that even. I remember just exploring the neighborhood. There was this ravine at the end of the street, both a ravine and a cliff. It was looking down over the St. Lawrence River in Quebec City. So I can imagine that possibly Abraham was living under a rather oppressive regime, perhaps. And he gets up and goes, and he follows the Euphrates River upstream. I mean, that already right there, that's an adventure. Abraham, you don't do that. Stay here. You have to decide you're going to live with the fear and do something crazy. It stretches when you are forced to live around people either speaking a different language or at least speaking a different accent and living in completely different communities where the rules are different. The rules of social engagement and cooperation, they're different. That forces you to think differently, be adaptive. That's powerful.
How has fatherhood challenged or expanded your sense of adventure?
Raising human beings that you're responsible for, but you can't control everything they do. that's an adventure
in itself. Yeah,
they do stuff that you think, why? But at the same, but also they create things. You think, wow, where did that come? Like my older girl, Emily, phenomenal illustrator and colorist. But I walk in there and I look at that, and every time I do, I see something different. She's embarrassed by it. As typical artists are, they look at their work and all they see is their imperfections. Right. But I go, most people walk in and go, wow, where did she get that from? Wasn't from me. So it's like you get to have a front row seat to somebody else's process of discovery. That's cool.
Do you feel like you get to experience life in a different way as you observe them and live with them as they grow up?
Yeah. Because it's like being able to peer into a parallel universe.
Hi, my name is Stefan Alexis, conceptual photographer turned YouTuber and the creator of Fatherly Advice. Now, this channel was created to help men of God fill the gap in a world of fatherlessness. On this channel, you'll find fathers from all walks of life share their insights and advice on some of life's greatest challenges. If you'd like to support what we do, you can check out our Patreon where you can find full-length interviews, behind-the-scenes content, my thoughts on the conversations, and much more. You can also support us by liking, commenting, subscribing, and sharing this content to the people that need it the most. So many of us suffer in silence, and you don't know who you could impact with a few simple clicks. Lastly, if you'd like to be a part of this channel, you can check out the description below where you can find instructions on how to contact us. And yeah, that's it for now. Enjoy the rest of the conversation.
Every person you meet and have a really good, deep conversation with is a little portal into a parallel universe, because nobody experiences life the same way. With your kids, you get a much bigger portal into that parallel universe, and it's over a longer space of time, and you get to see it develop. There's an argument floating around the internet for about 10 years. Well, it probably predates that, but that's as long as I've been aware of it. That this is all just a simulation. And in fact, none of this
is real.
Reality, it's like that line that Robin Williams came up with 40, 50 years ago, reality, what a concept. Reality is almost irrelevant. This is we're living in a simulation. There's actually a very good argument for that reality. In which case, if this is my simulation, well, you're in a different simulation. All these other people are in different simulations. They overlap, but it means you're getting to peer into a parallel universe through another human being. That's pretty interesting. Now, maybe I'm being a little too melodramatic. I don't know. But that's the way it seems to me. So with your kids, you get it for longer and you get to see it develop.
Over time.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. It's a good incentive to have kids.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know that people think about that or have that in mind when they go about it, but it's any sincere, parent that really wants to do a good job of parenting will discover that very quickly when their kids you start seeing them make their first few discoveries.
It's deep, man. You're a deep guy. I like you, man. All right. Okay, I want to ask you this. Do you see marriage as an ongoing adventure? And if so, in what way?
The longer we've been married, the more relaxing it's become. When Heather and I initially married, I did not realize how much trauma that I had locked up here, how much angst, and I was a cynical, angry guy, getting progressively less cynical and angry. But I did not realize when I married my wife and we started going that I actually was battling with distrust of women.
How do you find that out?
When I would behave in such a way as to make my wife angry, and she'd point out what I was doing, and I realized I was defending myself. It was a defense mechanism. Well, hang on, take the defense down. Why are you defend against something that you have a preconceived notion up here? It's a belief that you've built. Typically, you've built it very, very early in life.
Right.
And when you run into situations where you misjudge, you mishandle situations, you're suddenly realizing, is my belief wrong? Maybe it is. Maybe she isn't. Maybe she is someone I can trust. Okay, and that's been a real process of discovery. When you live with someone day in, day out, you discover what you have locked away in your own mind. If you're smart, you discover what you've got locked away in your own head, and you fix it, you correct it. I heard a really good line not so long ago. All intelligence is error correction. It's a process of correcting things that pardon me, the aircraft trajectory is flying along, but it hits gust. Doing the autopilot, or if the pilot has to constantly is correcting. Every gust is an error, throws it off course a little bit, bring it back. And so if you walk into marriage and you walk through marriage intelligently, you're always looking for clues that you might be making a mistake. You might be mistaken about something. And once you've gone down that road of error correction long enough, well enough, the errors sort of go down in number.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't want to ever believe that I'm error free, but it allows you to relax and okay, I've got the autopilot on, and it always seems to work pretty well at keeping us at the same altitude. Because I've tuned it now. I've evicted the bugs from the software.
Right. You get to know each other, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. You know your partner better.
And I've invested 34 years of my life in understanding how one woman thinks and feels and operates, what she values, what she doesn't. And that's a real treasure. Because it means I'm now, I think I can say, and I think she'd agree, I'm now an asset to her. She's got a good backstop. You know, cool. Well, that's a role I'm entirely happy to play.
So if a couple is missing that adventurous part in their marriage, what suggestions would you have for them to bring that adventure back?
If a couple is feeling slightly staid, they just need to talk. Okay, there's a suggestion. They just need to talk. And say, why do we feel this way? What's missing? And as long as you talk and face the emotions squarely, not just your own, but hers, you'll find the adventure.
So it goes back to what you said earlier about the humility part, right? Like facing these conversations with humility and like a willingness to adapt and change for the well-being of, well, the common good, I guess. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, you mentioned chickening out. Like, I want to know, like, through those scary moments, like how does it, like, your prayer life, how would like a prayer life look like through those scary moments?
It gets deeper. You start to ask things, and you start to experience emotions that you didn't know were possible. You know, today I spent most of my day yelling at God. Just for feeling angry and thinking, come on, move it. And the beauty about walking with God is he's got very broad shoulders.
Because some people are afraid to be that open with God, but be that honest.
And he's afraid you won't be.
Right.
You brought us this far for a reason, didn't you? Well, we need you to act. Because here's where we are. This is what's happening. This is the suffering. I don't doubt in Israel and Palestine and Lebanon and Syria, you know, certainly the last year, but a few years before that, a lot of them were screaming like this, saying, where the hell are you, boss? And he's got broad shoulders. He'll take it. All he asks is, don't turn your back on me. Just don't turn your back on me. We can win as long as we are walking with him in lockstep. And we're willing to take the adventure.
Right. How do you balance what people see as rules in Christianity with a sense of adventure?
You just mentioned the sandbox. You know, it's like God's created this massive cosmic sandbox for us to play in. But even a sandbox has borders. There might be features in the sandbox or rocks or things like that. God says, don't hit your head against that. You'll regret it. You know, yeah, we could have a bunch of streets without any street lights. There'd be a whole lot more accidents, a lot more people killed. The rules are there. If they're God's rules, they're there to make sure that people live life to the fullest. You know, that verse in Deuteronomy, I've said before you the ways of life and the ways of death, and he says, now choose life. I forget how it's worded exactly. So that's what the rules are, just there to make sure that everybody gets to have the maximum fun in the sandbox.
How do you bring a sense of adventure to everyday routines?
I don't. I just expect it. That's the way God is. He loves adventure, and it's the way he's wired human beings to have adventures. So as long as I just keep walking with him, keep listening, keep trusting, adventures are coming. 1 today, 10 tomorrow, 2 next week. They'll be coming. I don't really try and stimulate it, but I have no worry that there's going to be adventure happening.
What do you do when life gets monotonous?
What I should do when I'm bored is sit down at the computer and start writing something. Writing a new newsletter edition, or writing an email to somebody, sending a text to somebody I know who needs encouragement. But I need to sit down and write and create. That's what I should be doing, rather than mindlessly doom scrolling on YouTube. Is creating something. And for me, creating means playing with words.
So you'd probably maybe recommend or suggest, like, for people that do feel like they live monotonous lives, find ways to get creative.
Yeah.
Find ways to get creative.
We were born to create. God is a creative God. He created human beings to be creative, to create stuff, to make stuff that's not been done before, in new and different and wild and wonderful ways. That means engaging with